Silently, the Indomitable floated into Earth sector, a region of disputed space littered with icy, forgotten artifacts from ancient battles. Our approach was deliberate, calculated, and methodical. It was the very strategy we were known for. Yet, that reputation didn't earn us respect. I could already hear the sneers of the Ven and the Dry, their fleets watching from the shadows, observing us through their remote hosts. To them, we were a joke, a relic, a cumbersome, outdated ship that lumbered through space like a wounded beast. They laughed at us, mocking our ship's sluggish movements and ancient systems. I could practically feel their disdain crackling through the comms. But they didn't know the Indomitable like I did. They didn't know what she could do. As the Dre and Ven fleets lingered, I called Jordan Kell, our tactical officer, to assess the situation. When he turned, there was a flicker of confidence in his eyes. "They're watching us, Captain," Kell said, his voice steady. "The Dry and Ven seem to think we're an easy target. Their formations are tightening, likely preparing to encircle us." I nodded, taking in the changing patterns on the radar. They were moving like a pack of schooling fish, circling their prey. I smirked. "Let them think that," I said. "Move in for the kill, when the time is right." It was then that Talia, our chief engineer, spoke up. Her hands danced over the systems panel with an almost artistic grace. "Captain," she said, a wry smile on her face, "if they think we're slow and outdated, they're going to close in fast. That's when we'll catch them off guard." Talia had an uncanny ability to see beyond appearances, to view the Indomitable not as a relic, but as a finely tuned weapon. Every part of the ship was an extension of her genius, a canvas for her endless ingenuity. "Hold positions," I commanded, my voice firm but calm. "Prepare for their approach." The Ven were the first to move. Sleek, golden ships emerged from the dark side of a derelict moon, their hulls gleaming with polished arrogance. The Dry followed closely behind, their formations shifting into an aggressive arc. "They think we're weak," Kell muttered, his fingers hovering over his controls. "They've never seen us in action," I replied. "Let's give them something to remember." Our first move was subtle, a quiet shift in energy output that made our shields appear vulnerable. The Dry fell for it immediately, their scout ships darting in to test our defenses. Talia timed it perfectly. As the Dry's scans tried to penetrate our systems, Talia unleashed a carefully calibrated feedback loop. The sudden surge fried their scanners, leaving them blind and floundering. Their ships swayed in confusion, scattering wide as they tried to regroup. Then came the Vogan, larger, more aggressive ships that charged forward in a deadly wedge formation. Kell leaned in, his voice sharp. "Captain, they're closing in fast. They're armed and ready for a full assault." "Let them come," I said, leaning back in my chair. "Talia, activate the camouflage turrets." The hidden turrets sprang to life, releasing a torrent of crackling energy bolts. The Vogue ships, caught off guard, scattered in disarray. Their arrogance turned to panic as explosions rippled through their formation. Talia grinned. "They didn't see that coming." "Excellent work," I said, watching as the battlefield shifted in our favor. But the battle wasn't over yet. The Dry launched a squadron of smaller ships, angling toward our vulnerable flank. Kell reacted instantly, unleashing a precise barrage of counterfire. The first Dry ship spiraled out of control, but the others pressed on, determined to board us. "Prepare for a breach," I ordered. "All hands to battle stations." Kell and Talia moved quickly, heading to the lower decks where the Dry boarding party was attempting to cut through our hull. The sound of torches slicing through metal echoed ominously. "Status?" I asked over the comms. Talia's voice came through, steady and confident. "Redirecting power to the outer hull. They won't get far." A sudden surge of energy coursed through the ship, frying the Dry's cutting tools. Their ships, unable to withstand the counterattack, broke away, retreating into the void. Back. On the bridge, Kell returned, his face grim but determined. "Captain, we've driven them off for now, but the Vogan and Dry fleets are regrouping. They're planning something bigger, a joint assault." I nodded, my mind racing. "We've shown them what we're capable of. Now they'll want to test us even further. They think they can break us," Kell said, a spark of defiance in his eyes. "They'll learn," I replied, leaning back in my chair. "They'll learn just how dangerous we can be." As the fleets began to reform, I called Talia. "Can you keep the systems on low power without compromising readiness?" She nodded, a mischievous smile playing on her lips. "The Indomitable can play dead if that's what you're asking." "Perfect," I said. "Let's give them a false sense of security." With the ship powered down to minimal levels, we appeared as nothing more than a drifting relic, a weak, lifeless target. The enemy closed in, their ships forming a tight ring around us. Kell's voice cut through the tension. "Decoys are ready, Captain." "Deploy them," I ordered. Talia's drone sprang into action, emitting false energy signatures that confused the enemy's sensors. The Dry and Vogan fleets faltered, their formations breaking as they tried to track the phantom signals, and then we struck. Talia activated the plasma turrets, unleashing a devastating barrage. The enemy ships, caught in their own trap, exploded in a cascade of fire and debris. Cheers erupted on the bridge, but I remained focused. "Stay sharp," I warned. "This isn't over yet." The remaining ships attempted to breach our defenses, but Talia and Kell were ready. With precision and determination, they held the line, driving the enemy back at every turn. By the end of the battle, the once mighty fleets of the Dry and Vogan were scattered and broken. The Indomitable had lived up to her name, proving that even a slow ship could be a force to be reckoned with. As the enemy retreated, I allowed myself a moment of satisfaction. "We've shown them what humanity is capable of," I said. Kelly nodded. "And they won't forget it anytime soon." Talia smirked. "Let them come back. We'll be ready." In the quiet that followed, I leaned back in my chair, a smile tugging at the corners of my lips. Humanity had made its mark among the stars, and the Indomitable was just the beginning, if it works. Kell looked back at entry, hearing the metal noises at the door, the sound of welding torches and shredding. "They will not wait for us, Taya," Kell snapped. "So buy me some time." Her fingers were moving frantically. "I'm almost there," she nodded. Kell placed himself behind a neighboring bulkhead, his gun aimed toward the door. As the torches and Vogs pierced through, the door slipped open. 3 Vogs entered. The soldiers rushed in, and Kell fired a swift volley, defeating the first 2 before taking shelter as the gunfire returned. Taya's hand slammed past him, striking the last override. A faint vibrating hum coursed through the hull as the outside shell softly glowed. The last of the Vol soldiers let out a cry as power surged through his suit's metal, cutting off as he fell to the floor. "Nice job, Smoking," Kell remarked, holstering his weapon. "But they're more numerous," Taya said, her gaze narrowing. "I noticed," Kell replied. "A minimum of 2 squads are approaching." Taya rummaged through her toolbox. "We can try something risky. If I separate the pressure valves for emergencies, we should be able to manage the vent without removing the whole deck." "It's dangerous," she admitted. Kell nodded firmly. "I'll cover you, Taya. Let's do it." She switched the electricity over to the emergency grid while Kell assumed responsibility for the ventilation system, poised beside the bulkhead, ready to catch any intruders. The door slid open once more. Another squad rushed in, only to be greeted by Kell's weapon, Aobe. "Burst of bullets! I'm almost there!" Taya roared, her fingers flitting around the control panel. With one final command, she activated the emergency ventilation system. The whole section was violently depressurized. The remaining soldiers and Vogs hissed, their bodies sucked out into the void of space. Kell exhaled, running a hand through his hair. "Well done, Taya." She smiled, albeit nervously. That was a little too close. The two headed back toward the bridge. As they arrived, Kell kept an eye on the flotilla. At last, the Ven ships were retreating, limping away from the Indomitable. "Nice. Job down there, Taya," Kell said. She nodded. "We've got a few hull breaches on Deck 7. Shields took the worst of the attack, but we're fleeing on reserves. Repairs will take time, but we'll be ready for the next fight." "Good," Kell replied. "Let's regroup and begin repairs. We've given them plenty to think about, but they'll return." He watched the scanners as the enemy ships vanished from view.